5-valve test on an ASSE 1020 PVB. First, flush the test cocks. Step number 1, install test adapters if applicable. Step number 2, open test cock number 1, then close. Step number 3, open test cock number 2, then close. Next, attach the test kit. Step number 1, close high, low, and bypass valves and high and low bleed valves on the test kit. Step number 2, attach high to test cock number 1. Step number 2, attach the low hose to test cock number 2.
I'm going to take the lid off at this point.
Step number 4, open test cock number 1. Step number 5, open high bleed valve, bleed the air, and then close.
Trickle, 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 close.
Step number 6, open test cock number 2. Step number 7, open the low bleed valve, bleed the air, and close. Next, test number 1, the tightness of the number 2 shutoff valve. Step number 1, close the number 2 shutoff valve. Step number 2, open the high valve. Step number 3, open the low valve. The differential will read 0. Step number 4, close the high valve. Step number 5, close the low valve. Step number 6, close the number 1 shutoff valve. If the differential gauge reading does not rise above 0, record the number 2 shutoff as tight. Next, test number 2, the tightness of the check valve. Step number 1, open the number 1 shutoff valve. Step number 2, open the low bleed valve, and then close. If the differential gauge reading holds steady at 1 psi-d or higher, record the check valve as tight. Next, test number 3, the air inlet opening. Step number 1, close test cock number 1 and test cock number 2. Step number 2, remove hoses from test cock number 1 and test cock number 2. Step number 3, attach the high hose to test cock number 2. And if you haven't, step number 4, remove the air inlet canopy or hood. Step number 5, open test cock number 2. Step number 6, open the high bleed valve, bleed the air, and then close. Step number 7, center the differential gauge at test cock number 2. Step number 8, close the number 1 shutoff. Step number 9, open the high valve and record differential gauge reading when the air inlet opens. If air inlet is visibly open when the differential gauge reading is 1 psi-d or higher, record the valve as passed. Next, replace the air inlet canopy or hood. And finally, restore the system. Step number 1, close test cock number 2. Step number 2, remove high hose. Step number 3, open all valves on test kit to drain water. And step number 4, restore to pre-test status.